Okay, so today we're gonna do the two slider recipes, which are perfect for the Super Bowl if anyone is doing anything later. We are going to be going a little bit back and forth between both recipes just so that we can kind of have them done at the same time, ready to go in the oven at the same time. So bear with me. I'll make sure to go over like step numbers. And if anyone has any questions or needs anything repeated, don't hesitate to ask. But we're just going to kind of flip-flop back and forth so that we can have both of those ready at the same time. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is preheat our oven. So we're going to need the oven at 375 for both. So if everyone wants to just go ahead and do that for a sec, and then we can get started working through the recipes. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is, since we're using frozen or pre-made chicken, we want to get that heated up. So whatever your package says, we're going to want to follow those directions. Meaning also, if it has a different oven temperature, you can change the oven temperature to cook the chicken. And then you just have to remember to change it back to 375 after. I have chicken that was refrigerated, not frozen. So I'm not going to heat it now. I'd rather just heat it on the sliders. But for frozen, we want to get that reheated first. So you just want to lay those out on a parchment lined baking sheet, and then you can put them in the oven. If it says 375, great. Like I said, if it's different, you can always use the different oven temperature, and then you're going to want to set a timer. So I'm just going to have a timer for myself around like 15, 20 minutes. I feel like that's usually what most packages will say. So that way, when everyone's timers go off, we can all pause for a sec to take those out. So I'll just give everyone a second to do that. You can use tenders, nuggets, cutlets, like whatever you have, whatever's easiest. They also don't have to be breaded if you don't want them to be breaded. And then once everyone has their chicken in the oven, just give me a thumbs up and we'll go on to, we're going to switch to the cheesesteak sliders for a little bit after that. All right. How is everyone doing? Does anyone need any more time to put their chicken in the oven, or are we all good? All right, I think it looks like everyone's good. Okay, so then now we're gonna switch over to the Philly cheesesteak for a sec. So we're gonna work on our steak. So we have the shaved steak that the recipe calls for. Let me bring the camera back. Okay, I'm gonna get. I can't tell just yet, but mine looks like it might be kind of large. They might slice it. Let's see. Oh yeah, so the mine kind of, if you can see, mine kind of looks like pretty big. Like the wide slices. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to take my knife and just cut them into strips. Just so it's a little bit easier for them to break down. So what you can kind of see mine's like a big rectangle. If yours is not like this, you don't have to do that. I just want them to be a little bit smaller. So I'm gonna cut in half widthwise. And then I'm gonna cut these into little strips like this. So they're a little more bite size when they go into the sliders. And then you just want to kind of pull them apart a little bit. And we'll put them into a bowl because we're going to mix them, add some seasoning and stuff. So I have my bowl right here. So I'm just kind of separating the layers as we add it into the bowl. And this will also happen as it cooks too, but we just want to make sure that as much of it gets the seasoning that we're going to put on it. For anyone who is just joining us, we first added our chicken from the chicken parm sliders recipe into our oven, just based on whatever the package directions are. And then we switched over to the Philly cheesesteak slider recipe, and we're just getting our steak in a bowl right now. Okay, and then I'm just gonna do the same thing with this other half right here. Just cut little strips.
Hey Sophia, sorry, we're late. Where are we at right now?
So what we did, we're flip-flopping a little bit between both recipes. We first took the chicken that we need for the parm sliders recipe. We just put that in the oven according to package directions. And now we are on the Philly cheesesteak slider recipe. We're just getting our shaved steak into the bowl. Mine was like really big rectangles, so I just cut them up a little bit and I'm separating the layers. That's all we've done so far.
All right, thank you.
We need.
And this doesn't have to be perfect right now either. It'll separate as it cooks as well once we get that going, but just so that it's not huge chunks. Okay. All right, now I'm just gonna set this cutting board aside. Since that had raw meat on it, we don't want anything else to touch that. Along with the knife, I'm just gonna wash my hands quick. Okay, and then once everyone has their steak in a bowl, give me a thumbs up and we'll start adding some seasoning to it. I see a bunch already, awesome.
I know I just joined. I just want to say hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good, and you?
Good, I'm doing good, thank you.
Welcome.
All right, does anyone need any more time getting that steak in the bowl separating? If so, not a problem. But it looks like we're all good. Okay, so now we're gonna start adding some stuff to the bowl. The first thing we're gonna wanna do is 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. So once we get this steak in the pan, the cornstarch kind of helps everything form a little bit of a crisp on the outside. So that's why we like to add that. All right, so we're gonna go 2 tablespoons. Sprinkle it on top. And we'll also mix everything as well. And that's another reason why we wanted those pieces separated a little bit, because the more cornstarch that's on each piece, the more crisp we're gonna get. So give me another thumbs up once we have the cornstarch in there, and we will continue to work our way through. All right, next we're gonna do 1 teaspoon of salt. Just gonna get our 1 teaspoon. Sprinkle that over. And then again, just give me another thumbs up once that's in there. So Halia, yes, you can just watch. That's totally fine. All right. Everyone good on the salt? Okay, perfect. So now we're gonna do 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. And then lastly, we have a 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. I have a pepper grinder, so I'm just gonna do like 4 scrunches, and I feel like that will be good. So now we just want to mix this all together just to get it all evenly coated. If you want to use your hands, you can. You also don't have to. I'm just going to grab a spatula and just mix it like that. You just want to try and get as much of that steak coated. You can see some of it sticking to the sides of the bowl too. So a spatula is good to kind of like grab that off the side, scrape it off, and get it back on the steak. And if it looks like it's all kind of sticking together again, that's all right. It'll separate once we get it in the pan. So yeah, once you kind of see that everything's off the side of the bowl, we can, that's pretty much good. All right, and then we're just gonna set that aside for now and work on the vegetable. So just give me 1 thumbs up when everyone is ready to start working on the veggies. And we're gonna cut. All right, is everyone all good to start chopping some veggies? Okay, so we're gonna work on our onion first. So we just have 1 yellow onion. And we wanna slicing, I believe. Yes, okay, so we're gonna thinly slice 1 yellow onion. So first we have all this kind of papery stuff on the outside, but we're just gonna cut, this is the root end, and then this is the stem end. So we're gonna wanna cut the stem end off. And then that gives us a little bit easier way to peel some of that skin off. And this layer of skin, we're still gonna wanna get through. We wanna take off all the skin until it looks just yellow or white on the inside. There we go. My onion's making a mess for me. Let me just go throw away all this skin really quick. So now we have our onion, we have 1 flat side. So we're gonna put it down on the flat side. And we're gonna cut right through that root. So now we have 2 halves with another flat side. So normally, whenever you cut an onion, everyone's always going to tell you leave the root intact because that pretty much holds the whole onion together. But since we want slices, and personally my favorite way to slice is this way on an onion, we are going to actually cut that root end off. And then from here, we're going to turn it so both flat sides are facing you and outside from you. And then we're just going to go down with our rocking motion and slice. We'll just do that across the whole half. And you can slice the onion another way too. I just like the way that the size and the thickness that we get of the slices. So this is my preferred way to slice an onion. So to go over that one more time, we have our root end. We're going to cut that off. And then we're going to turn our onion and we're just going to slice down. And sometimes the end pieces will be kind of like flat, like they'll have like big, I guess, area, like it's not really a slice. So you can always find those after and slice them. Just find those end pieces and slice those up. All right. So then we're just going to put these into a separate bowl for now. This onion did not make me cry, which is very nice because normally I end up crying a lot from cutting onions. And then once everyone has their onion all good, give me one more thumbs up. We'll move on to our pepper. I see Joshy's all good. Martina and Tommaso are all good. See some people still working, so we'll give it another minute. And I guess it is actually quite fitting that one of these recipes is a Philly cheesesteak since Philadelphia is one of the teams playing today.
We are actually from Philadelphia, so go Birds.
Oh, wow, awesome. Tommaso, do you want the Eagles to win?
He's shy.
That's okay. All right, does anyone need any more time with the onion? Okay, looks like we're all good. All right, so now we're gonna slice our bell pepper. So we have one green bell pepper, or I mean, you could use any color, doesn't really matter. I just have green. And then I'm gonna show you a quick way that I like. I think there's a bunch of different ways to really slice bell pepper, but I find that this is the way that wastes the least. So I'm gonna cut as little off of the top and the bottom as possible. That way I have like 2 openings on each end. And then I'm gonna lay it down on the top side just because it's a little bit bigger, so it's a little more stable. I'm just gonna make 1 slice downward. So I did that right here. So you can see now it's kind of, I could open it here. And then from there, this is where it gets a little tricky. You can see this is what it's connected to each place or to each end on the pepper. On the ends right here. So we want to cut those, and that way we have the middle is all, which we're not, that's what we're not going to use. We can get that all together and then have the rest of the pepper to use. So I'm going to lay the pepper down now and put the knife in where I cut. And then I can see, okay, here's the first connection right here. So I'm going to carefully slice through that. And then I'm kind of going to like roll the pepper as I go and slice through each area where it's connected. Here, I'm gonna turn it around. So then now I just have this whole middle done. Like this is gonna get thrown out. And then we have the entire pepper to use. And then you can also slice the top and the bottom too if you want. And if it gets a little, like we still have this the white pith here, we can always take some of that out too. And if you have seeds, I just tap the pepper on the board. And they'll come out. And then if you want to get those extra white parts out, I just cut close to it. And then you can take your knife and just kind of slice that off. So that way it's all gone. So we'll just do that first. Notice I'm doing it away from me, so that way the blade of the knife is not going towards me. Okay. And then now, really simple, we're just gonna cut some simple slices here. Do them pretty thin, so that way they're kind of the same size as the onion. That. And we'll just do that for the whole pepper. And you can put those peppers in the same bowl with your sliced onion too. All right. And then if you wanted to, you could always also add the bottom because the bottom's a little more whole enough to make slices. But if you're ever dicing a pepper, you can always use both ends too to add. So it's really less waste, which is good. And then I'm just going to take that middle part with all those seeds and throw that out. So now we have our peppers and our onions in one bowl. We have our steak in another bowl. We're almost ready to start cooking. My timer did go off a minute or so ago, so if you have chicken in the oven, just give it a look. If it's ready, just make sure you take that out whenever your timer goes off, and then you can just set that aside for now. And then once everyone is all set with their pepper, just give me a thumbs up and we can start cooking up our filling. Looks like everyone is good. All right, there is one more thing we have to do before we start cooking, but I am gonna have everyone start having their skillet heating up. So then that way, once we're done mixing these two ingredients, it should be heated up. So we have medium large skillet. This is the size of mine. We're gonna do it over medium high heat. So I just have that heating up right now. And then we just need to mix two things that we're gonna add to the steak while it cooks. So you just need a small mixing bowl, or I have this little ramekin here. We're gonna do 2 tablespoons of soy sauce and 2 teaspoons of Dijon mustard. So I have my Dijon here. I'm just gonna take 2 teaspoons out. Doesn't need to be super exact. We have 2 teaspoons of the mustard, so that's the measuring spoon with the small T. And then you have 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, which is the measuring spoon with the big T, or the TB. I'm using low sodium soy sauce, but you can use whatever you have. That's just what I have in my fridge. And we're just gonna mix those two things together. I'm actually gonna get a whisk. I feel like that'll do a better job. All the mustard out of the teaspoon. Okay. And you can see now the color of the soy sauce looks a little lighter, so that mustard is thoroughly mixed in. So we'll leave that here. All right, so now we just want to make sure we have our vegetables near us, our steak near us, and that mixture of the soy sauce and mustard. Moving some things around so I can have you guys look at my stove. All right. And before we go on, just so that everyone's on the same page, we are about to start step 10 on the Philly cheesesteak slider recipe. In terms of the chicken parm sliders, we haven't gone past step 3. So we're pretty much gonna work on the Philly cheesesteak sliders until we have everything ready, and then we can start assembling the both of them together. All right, so does everyone have a skillet heating up? Yeah? Okay, so we're gonna wanna add about 1 tablespoon of oil. The recipe called for either avocado or olive oil. If you don't have either of those, you can always use whatever you have on hand. So I just have some oil in there. And the first thing that we're gonna work on is the steak. So to take the steak out of the bowl and into the pan, I'm gonna use some tongs. That way I can kind of try and separate it as I add it in. But like I said, it'll also just kind of separate on its own. And then the important thing that we want to do once we have the steak in here, we don't want to touch it. We're going to leave it. So then that way the surfaces are going to be touching the hot pan longer, and then they'll be able to create that nice brown, those crispy edges. So we're not going to touch it until we have to flip it. Just going to give it another sec to heat up. I'm gonna start picking off some pieces and adding them in. If it looks a little clumpy in the pan, that's okay. Like I said, it'll separate as it cooks. I'm gonna pulling an audible and just using my hands. Might be a little bit easier. And because the steak is sliced so thin, it is gonna cook really quickly. That's why we are pretty much just gonna let it be. We don't want to overcrowd the pan either, so we're probably gonna have to do a few batches, which is fine, because like I said, it'll cook really quickly. All right, this is all I'm gonna put in for now, and then I'm just gonna let it sit. I can see some of the edges are already starting to brown. So I see a lot of the edges on my steak is getting nice and brown, which is exactly what we're going for. So I'm gonna let it go for another minute and then start flipping. Oh yeah, we got some nice browning going on here. And some of those bigger pieces are coming apart now, which is good. Now I'll let this go another minute or so to get most of the pink out of there. If you see some pink still when we're taking them off the pan, that's totally fine because they are gonna get fully cooked in the oven if they're not fully cooked now, because it does cook so quickly. All right, so I have a paper plate here. I'm just gonna take this steak off and put it on the paper plate. And then add in my next batch of steak to the pan. I am just gonna add a touch more oil. Not a lot. And then just get the rest of this in there. Normally I probably would stop here, but I'm just gonna fit the rest in there for the sake of time. And this bowl that had the raw steak in it, I'm gonna put that in the sink. This batch looks almost ready. Oh, maybe another minute. Start flipping these. We got some nice, good browning. You have a lot of stuff stuck to the bottom of the pan like I do. We're gonna get that up at the end, so don't worry, because that's a lot of flavor there. Let this go for another minute. Take the rest of this out. Gonna add another tablespoon of or so of oil to this pan. And then we're gonna put our mushrooms, our onions and peppers right in there and get those cooking. Let those hang out for a little bit. We want them to get soft.
Might should be off.
Yes, Miss Sophia, do we have to put the soy sauce or?
Not yet. We're gonna wait until everything, we're gonna let the onions and peppers cook, then we're gonna add the steak back in and then add that soy sauce mixture in.
All right,
So not yet, but almost there.
all right.
Just gonna move these around every so often. And when we do add that soy sauce mixture, and that's gonna help release all of that fond at the bottom of the pan from the steak. So we'll get all that flavor. They're getting there. All right, and then, let's see. All right, while we wait for these to cook, I'm gonna have us go down to step number 29 on the Philly cheesesteak sliders, which is just a little bit ahead. All we're gonna do is just melt some butter that we're gonna brush onto the rolls later on. So we just need 2 tablespoons of butter. So over here for a sec. So I just have another little ramekin here. That's microwave safe. Just gonna get 2 tablespoons. Cut in half. And I've had my butter out since we started class, so it probably should melt pretty quick. But I always say 30-second increments. So always do 30 seconds, give it a look, and then you can do another 30 seconds if you need. That way we just have that ready for us later. And we'll also have to do some butter for the chicken parm sliders, and that one's gonna get seasoned a little bit. Yep. All mine needed was 30 seconds. So I'm just gonna set that aside. Everything's starting to get soft in my pan here. I'm gonna give it like another minute. And then we can start adding the steak back. All right, I'm gonna put all of my steak from my paper plate and any juices that might be on here. I'm gonna throw that all back in. And then we're going to take our soy sauce mixture and pour that over everything. And then we're just gonna toss all of that. Gonna lower the heat down to medium, medium low. And just kind of let this come together for a few minutes. All right. I'm gonna let that sit for a little. Okay. Bring everyone back over here. Now we pretty much just have to assemble, which is the easy part. My steak and peppers looks pretty good, so I'm just gonna leave it on the stove, but turn the heat off. So then once everyone is ready and they have their steak and peppers and onions pretty much all set, we will start getting into the rest of the steps. Does anyone need any more time to finish everything up, or are we good to keep going? Just give me a thumbs up if you're good to keep going. Okay, looks like everyone's good. Okay, so we melted those 2 tablespoons of butter. That's gonna be for the Philly cheesesteak rolls. We do need to do some butter for the chicken parm rolls too. So on that recipe, for step number 4, calls for a half stick of butter. I don't know if we actually need a half stick of butter, but I'm gonna go, well, the half stick is 4 tablespoons. I guess I'll do it just to be 1, 2, 3. Yeah, all right, I guess we'll just do it. So 4 tablespoons or a half stick of butter. If there's extra, it's okay. And again, I'm just gonna cut this up into some smaller pieces so that it microwaves a little bit quicker. And then for this butter, we're gonna be adding a little bit of seasoning to it once it's melted. So again, you want to do 30-minute increment or 30-second increments, excuse me. If you did 30 minutes, your butter might be gone. About 30 seconds was good again for this one. And then for this butter, we're gonna do a teaspoon each of garlic powder and crushed red pepper flakes. But the red pepper flakes, if you don't want it to be any bit spicy at all, you can just leave those out. You can also do chopped garlic if you have chopped garlic. Do 1 teaspoon of the garlic powder. I think I'm gonna go without red pepper flakes too. I think I want it to be just garlic. And then I'm just gonna mix that up a little bit. So now we realistically have everything ready to assemble both of our sliders. I'm gonna clean off my cutting board. I got some melted butter on there. And then we can start assembling as long as everyone is ready. Just give me a thumbs up if you're ready to start assembling. Perfect. Okay. So we're gonna need two 9x13 pans, one for each set of rolls. The first thing we're gonna wanna do is just cut our rolls. So as you see the way they come, they're all together. There's 12 of them and they're all pressed together. But what we want to do is carefully cut the bottom away from the top without separating them. So I'm going to get a serrated knife, which means that it has this fancy edge. This is good for using for bread. So I'm kind of going to lay the bread on its side like this and just very carefully slice my way through the middle. So I'm separating the top and the bottom of the rolls. And if they do come apart a little bit while you're slicing, that's totally fine. So I'm just kind of, like I see mine are in the middle, they're separating a little bit, but that's okay. So then I have the top and the bottom. So I'm going to take the bottom layer and place that in one of my pans. And then I'm going to do the same thing with my other set of rolls. So again, I'm just going to lay it on its side and carefully slice through the middle, working my way down. I'm going to put the bottom into my pan, and then I have my tops saved for later. So right now, this is what my two pans look like. Oh, there you go. All right. And then we'll work on one at a time just to make it easier. So we can start with the chicken parm sliders and get those together. So we'll have one bottom layer of rolls in front of us. And for the chicken parm sliders, we need some sauce. So whatever jarred sauce you have. I have some sauce that I made earlier this week that I'm going to use. So the first layer we're going to do is just we're going to spoon some sauce across the bottom of the rolls. You can do really as much or as little as you want. If you like them saucy, you can add extra. And then I'm just going to use the back of my spoon to kind of spread that out. It's good to me. All right, and then once you have your sauce layer down, give me a thumbs up. We'll add some more layers. All right, looks like everyone's pretty much good. Once you have your sauce down, you're gonna wanna layer the chicken on top of the sauce, however much fits. So if you have some extra chicken tenders or nuggets after, you can have those as a snack. So I'm gonna lay my chicken across. I'm gonna cut one of my pieces so that I can fill in the little gaps.
Sophia,
Yes.
sorry, what is in the sauce is butter and garlic powder, and what else is in there?
That was just for the butter that we're gonna brush on top. It was just butter and garlic powder. If you wanted to add some red pepper flakes, you can as well, but those are optional if you don't like spicy.
Oh, okay, but yours much thicker.
We didn't put the butter on yet.
Okay.
That's gonna go on top right when we're done.
Oh, okay. So what did you? It's like yours, like a sort of pink sauce.
That's the
What is
tomato
it?
sauce that we're layering on first.
Ah, only tomato sauce.
Yes,
Oh,
this
okay.
is for the chicken parm slider rolls. We're doing two different ones.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so I'm kind of playing Tetris a little bit to fill in my little spots so that there's chicken in every bite. That looks pretty good. Probably do one little piece. Okay, perfect. So if you want to, if your nuggets or tenders or whatever you have don't fit perfectly, you can cut some things up and make them fit a little bit nicer. And then once you have your chicken down, you can do another layer of tomato sauce. That looks good. And then once everyone has their second layer of tomato sauce on, do one more thumbs up, and then we have one more layer. All right, looks like everyone's good. So now we're just gonna take our mozzarella. You can use sliced fresh, you can use slices. I have shredded. So I'm just gonna sprinkle that on top. Do a nice hefty layer of cheese, because why not? Okay. And then on top of the layer of cheese, we're just gonna place one of our top layers right on top there. Just pressing down a little bit. And then our garlic butter mixture is gonna go on top. If you have a pastry brush, you can use a pastry brush to brush the top of your buns. Otherwise, you can just use a spoon and kind of spoon it on. That's does the trick just as well. Yeah, there is definitely some extra garlic butter, but it's all right. Okay. Did splatter some butter everywhere. So if you are using a pastry brush, just beware, it might flick the butter everywhere. And then one last step before these are ready, we're gonna take some grated Parmesan. And sprinkle that on top. And I love Parmesan, so I'm gonna be a little heavy-handed with it, but as much or as little as your heart desires. It's like I'm finishing my container. Okay. So there we have one of our sliders complete and ready to go in the oven. So I'm gonna set this aside for now, and then we can start working on the Philly cheesesteak sliders. We are almost there, guys. All right, is everyone all set with their chicken parm sliders? I see some people brushing still, so I'm gonna give it one more minute and then we can go ahead. All right. Looks like we're pretty much good. So for our Philly cheesesteak sliders, we're starting the same. We have our bottom layer of rolls. And the first thing we're gonna do is put on a layer of cheese. So for me, I personally love American cheese on a Philly cheesesteak, but I believe it's usually either American, provolone, or cheese whiz. So you can do, oh, I got it right. Oh, awesome. So you can do whichever your heart desires, but I'm going with American because that happens to be my favorite. It says six pieces, but I think we can get away with 4. But you can overlap it too. Yeah, so I'm kind of just gonna overlap them. Maybe I will do 6. Yeah, you know what, we will do 6. Or again, as much or as little cheese as you would like. So we have our bottom layer of cheese. To that, we are going to add our steak and pepper and onion mixture. I think I'm gonna have some leftover, so you don't have to fill it all to the brim, but just enough. But yeah, I think if I put this whole pan on there, it would be a little too much. So I'm just gonna make sure that there's a good amount on there. And I got every little area covered. Some falls off the sides, that's all right. All right. Just add a little more in this corner here. So like that. It's good to me. And then we're just gonna do another layer of cheese on top of there. So same thing. Oh wow, this is perfectly finishing up my cheese. That's love when that happens. All right, so we have another layer of cheese right on top. And then we're gonna do the same thing that we just did with our chicken parm sliders. So we're gonna take this top layer and put that on top. And then we're gonna do the same thing and brush with that butter. This one, we're just gonna use the plain butter. Brush it over the top. All right. And then for these, if you would like, you can add some sesame seeds sprinkled on top, which is what I'm gonna do. Perfect. Wow, those look good. All right. So now we have both of our sliders ready to go into the oven. Does anyone have any questions at all before we get these in our oven and we say goodbye for today?
I have a question. What time is this class over?
It's about to be over right now. All right, and then obviously before we go and put our sliders into the oven, I would love to take a photo with you guys. You can pick whichever one you want, or you can try and hold up both if you have more people. I will not be able to hold both. And like I said, we set the oven up to 375. So both of them will go in at the same time. They have different timings. The Philly cheesesteak takes about 7 to 10 minutes, and the chicken parm takes closer to 20, maybe 25. So you can just set 2 separate timers and keep an eye on them. Or if you plan on eating them later for the Super Bowl, you can just stick them in the fridge for now and then heat them up later. Or if you want to bake them now, you can, and then just reheat them later. If you do that, you probably would only need to do like 10 minutes for each of them, but whatever you prefer. But let's get a picture before we throw our sliders in the oven. So everyone get ready. I'm gonna hold one of them here, actually, and I'll give us a countdown. All right. Ready? 3, 2, 1, smile. Perfect. All right. Like I said, you could throw them both in the oven together. You can put them in later, whatever works best for you guys. If there are no other questions for today, thank you so much for coming. I hope you guys had a great time. I know we went a little bit over, so I apologize it took a little long, but I hope you love both of these slider recipes and enjoy them today.
But for me, I want to ask you a question. What if I would like to talk to a student for a second? What if I would like to talk to Ella?
Yeah, you could say hi if you want to, but we're going to sign off for class today.
Hi, Ella.
Hello.
Ella, let's be friends. Ella, is it okay if I get your number?
I'm not too sure. I'm not really making any new friends at the moment.
All right, guys, if that's all for today, then we are going to throw our sliders in the oven, and then for Martina and Tommaso, we can say go birds. And I
Bye,
hope
thank you.
everyone has a great Sunday, okay? Bye.